Those who cannot hear me, please raise your hand. Evidently, you can hear me. And I believe most of us here have healthy hearing faculties. Physically, yes. Most of us are not deaf. But that does not mean that we hear everything God wants us to hear. Remember that in many occasions when Jesus was teaching, he would end up by saying, "Let those who have ears hear." Because he is aware of our tendency to be selective in what we hear. We call that interior deafness, which is far worse than physical deafness because it is the deafness of the heart. So, let us open our ears and our hearts to hear the message of God for this Sunday. Let me begin with a true story. A young man was complaining to his father, who was a Eucharistic minister, that he does not feel the presence of Jesus in his life. So his father told him, "Examine your lifestyle. You are always out with your friends. If you're home, you're always in front of the computer. If not, you are playing with your smartphones or watching television." The father further said, "If you continue with this lifestyle, you will really not feel the presence of Jesus in your life." So today, I like to focus on the very important detail in the gospel when Jesus healed the deaf man. The very first thing that Jesus does is to take this man away from the crowd. It was a one-on-one encounter that would assure the deaf man that he need not worry. Jesus does not want to publicize the deed he intends to carry out. But also, this is very important, he doesn't want his word to be lost in the loud voices and the chatter of those around them. Jesus was a man of love and compassion. He wanted the man to experience only love, acceptance, and healing that comes from God, instead of rejection, blame, shame, and derision that he might have experienced from the people around him. He simply desired to make the man whole once again. So the question now for us is this: how can we have an up-close and personal encounter with Jesus? It's when the environment around us is silent. There's no presence of anyone except us and Jesus, a one-on-one encounter. This is always the most conducive environment for us to have an encounter with Jesus. And yes, it is very difficult to encounter and feel the presence of God when there are many people around and when there is noise. And so, the best way to encounter Him is in early morning as I practice it, and evening. Find your prayer spot and moments for you to encounter Jesus. Only in the quietness of your life you will be able to encounter and feel the healing presence of Jesus. And in the quietness of our life, you would be able to hear the voice of Jesus telling you what you need to hear so that you can have a motivation and energy to move on amidst the noisy grind of your life. Question: do you feel the presence of Jesus in life? If no, then try to live a quiet life and try to give time for Jesus more than you give time in satisfying your pleasure-seeking and loud lifestyle. But this does not mean that you will be isolating yourself from your friends and usual environment. No. This simply means that you need to lessen the noise in your life and lessen your engagement with worldly pleasures. Yet, you still connect yourself to this world, not anymore to seek earthly pleasure, but to seek people who are engaged with earthly pleasure so that you could bring them closer to Jesus. And that is part of the next mission we have for Jesus. And yes, the deaf-mute man in our gospel was healed by Jesus, not in the midst of the noisy crowd. Jesus instead brought the mute man away from the crowd, to be with him alone in quiet place, and in stillness of the environment, Jesus healed him. This also begins with our prayer. Sometimes our prayer is about saying a lot of things, but no. Prayer is this: pray not until God hears you, but until you hear God. Again, let it sink in. Pray not until God hears you, because that's what we want. But no, until you hear God. Many competing noises, voices, and it can overcome the voice of God. Only when we hear God that we will be able to speak. That's why the deaf man cannot speak, because he cannot hear. And so the same goes with us. We would be able to speak our personal experience of Jesus, and this will prompt us to accomplish the mission we are baptized into. That is, to live out and to proclaim our faith we have, so that others may see and hear and witness God's presence in our life, in our family, and in our community. This is a very important moment for all of us as we gather today. Jesus is beckoning us to come away with Him, away from the noisy world, and enter into the sacred silence with Him. Yes, sacred silence is our friend. Jesus is here in the words proclaimed and later on in the Eucharist that we will be receiving. He is the one who healed the deaf man, made the mute speak, and the blind to see. So I say to you, Ephphatha, let your ears and heart be open as He speaks to you in silence and in the sacrament. I say to you, Ephphatha, let your ears and heart be open as I speak to you in gentle whispers. I say to you, Ephphatha, let your ears and heart be open so you can hear His voice in the sacred silence. And we all say, speak to us, Lord. Your servant is listening.